everybody, and welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week, we're talking about my pick, which was Lair of the White Worm from sometime in the late 80s. I want to say 87.
89.
I forgot to write it down.
And how educated was this pick, Matt?
Not very. So I own this movie. I've watched it a couple times, and pretty much every time I watched it, it was like, well, that movie's like fucking psychedelic and trippy and weird. Maybe we could do an episode of Horror Movie Night on it. And I still stand by it. I just think that, as I said to Kyle off camera, man, from Paranorman to this is a real hot to cold on
I don't know what you're talking about.
Emotions.
It was hot all the way through, baby.
I watched them back to back in reverse order. And so Lair of the White Worm has been on my long list to watch. It when it was streaming for free on Prime, it was on there for a long time. And I just didn't get around to it. I was like, I had other stuff that I wanted to do, and then when I saw it come up on Matt's long list, I was like, well, he'll get to it, and I won't have to like watch it twice. And so I just never got around to watching it. It was my first watch today. I really like it. It's a really, really fun, very absurd film. So Ken Russell,
Yes,
co-wrote and directed it, and people that are listening would probably know him best for Altered States, right? Is that his most famous movie?
So yeah, I would say
here's what he's most famous for me. That Gothic poster that I used to see all the
Gothic,
time.
which I had a VHS copy of that, and I watched it, and I was like, this movie's boring as shit. Looks beautiful, but it is super boring.
Yeah.
Which I feel like could be a way to describe a pretty decent chunk of his actual filmography is beautiful but kind of boring. This is not that, for the record, but Kyle, was this your first watch as well?
This is my first watch, but I really like Ken Russell's stuff for the most part. Like Gothic, I agree with. It's like kind of boring, but still really pretty. Altered States is one that I fucking love. The Devils is iconic in its own right.
Oh, he did The Devils. I didn't look that far back. That was early in his career, right?
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, as we're about to talk about Lair of the White Worm here, like, if this is 1989, it feels like a 70s movie, though. Like,
it's the psychedelia, and it's the way that he did all of the trippy psychedelia.
The layering stuff.
Yeah, that's a specific
I don't know what it's called, but
style.
It's really and he does that
from
often.
that time period. Yeah.
Like he's figured out ways to do something similar, if not that exact technique, something similar often. We see it in Altered States. I think he does one segment in Gothic similarly. The Devils doesn't do that specifically, but the layering just within camera that he does is very that. Like it's when it goes psychedelic, which I actually almost didn't expect it to. The way that it started out, it was so fucking goofy.
Oh, it pops in earlier than I thought it would, but I did know that it had this vibe, and I was really pleasantly surprised because I typically don't like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. This movie is just so many inversions of expectations that I think it's super fun.
This movie, I remember this movie got me when I watched. This was something that I got in the mail from Netflix when I was in college.
Was that your first watch?
That was my first watch, and this is another one of those movies. I've talked about this multiple times, but Fango put out the book of 101 horror movies you've probably never seen but should. Mm-hmm. And this was in there, and I was working my way through that book, and I think I still have like 15 titles in that book that I have to see, but they're all like super hard out of print movies to find, so it's just
impressive,
a matter of waiting for.
If you got 85 down, that's really good.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of waiting for like Vinegar Syndrome or somebody to find the copyrights to those last 15. I can tell you categorically, it was the moment where she touches the crucifix and we get this fucking insane, like Jesus getting eaten by a giant snake puppet while like soldiers are attacking nuns, and like it's just five out of nowhere, like what feels like something that could be found on Downton Abbey suddenly just turns into psychedelic chaos in an instant. And I was just like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but
and
I'm
then
in.
10 minutes later it truly feels almost fucking Monty Python-esque with this Boy Scout playing harmonica and this woman starting to dance.
That is my second favorite part of this movie. That character is hilarious.
Lost it.
She the actual line that she says before she uses her fangs to bite his boner is, "My, you are a fine growing boy." I loved her character. She is so over the top. Apparently Hugh Grant and the other male lead, who's the archaeologist, Ken Russell, showed them some like weird comedy skits and was like, this is how I want you to play it. So it was very intentional with the way that, because I mean, Hugh Grant is the cheesiest motherfucking cheese of all time in this. I like, if you're not lactose intolerant and you watch this movie, you're still gonna have gas. He's so cheesy. It's great though. And the funniest thing is Ken Russell was like, went on record later on and was like, this movie killed overseas, especially in Australia. Such a great reception. The Brits hated the shit out of it. He was like, how can you watch this movie and take it seriously? It is the most over the top, silly,
so goofy.
It's like just a black comedy, you know? Like it. I think that it was before its time, and also the blasphemy.
I was thinking about you when I was watching this because I was like, Scott is gonna love how sacrilegious this movie is at points.
I only like when sacrilege is clever and like done in a very specific way, because I've listened to thousands of death metal songs in my life, and I'll get to why I'm mentioning that. But I've listened to a lot of fucking blasphemous music because I like the sound, and I also, like sometimes there are some great lyrics. But there's so much blasphemous bullshit out there between death metal, regular metal, heavy metal from the 80s, all the, religious horror movies that are out there. I've seen a lot of bad where it's just like, I don't give a fuck. Like, this is a stupid plot device. In this movie, it's so funny and fun, and I think it has equal parts to do with the acting. Like, the woman who plays, I totally missed her. It's Amanda Donahoe, but I never caught what her name in the movie is.
Lady something or other.
Let's just call her Snake Lady.
Yeah.
Lady Sylvia Marsh.
Lady Sylvia. Thank you. Later on, she's talking to Eve, the virgin, about how her false god, talking about Jesus, like, oh, if your god, your false god died on a cross, how bland, and she's just like speaking in such a ridiculous tone, and she says something to the effect of like, poor little virgins masturbating in the dark, Jesus leaving his brides wanting, and I'm like, nobody blasphemes like the Brits. Like, when they do it right, it is so charming.
Yeah. You were talking about Russell you were talking about the critics who took this way too seriously. Yeah. Russell had a direct quote that I really loved where he said, "The dour-faced critics insist on taking this movie seriously. How on earth can you take seriously the vision of Catherine Oxenberg dressed in a Marks and Spencer underwear being sacrificed to a fake phallic worm that's over 200 feet long?" And like, fucking exactly.
Exactly.
Also, guys, when Lady Sylvia like charms she hypnotizes, which I'll get to that in a second. She hypnotizes Eve and takes her back to her estate to basically do a purity test on her. I was like, guys, I think that this white worm might be a reference to some sort of body part. I'm not quite sure. And then she like shoves this like dildo onto her mons pubis, and I'm like, oh, yep, I wasn't wrong. I wasn't it wasn't like a subtext, it was text. And
it was full text.
Yeah, and then
full
she's
frontal
like
text.
Literally wearing a strap-on as she's about, I think that she was about to rape Eve before sacrificing her to the white worm. I don't really know.
But then the white worm moved too soon, and she was like, oh, well, the worm's already here, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. I was really happy that this doesn't have any legitimate rape in it. Amanda Donahoe is a crazy fucking character. Do you guys know that she was Adam Ant's 14-year-old girlfriend?
No.
Yeah, they lived together. I forgot that Adam Ant is a fucking pedophile, and I was like, I was reading the Wikipedia because I was like, Amanda Donahoe, she's been in other stuff that like she looks a little familiar. Phenomenal actor, but she was his like child girlfriend for 4 years, so he probably dumped her when she turned 18, which is very problematic.
I really thought he was a goody two shoes too.
She was in that video, dude.
No.
Yes. She's I'm pretty sure that she was in the goody two shoes video. Everything that she wears is so amazing.
It's incredible.
And I don't mean from like the amount of skin she's showing. I just mean that it's such like high fashion. She's got these amazing.
She looks like Little Edie from Grey Gardens, which I know you love.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm glad that wasn't my double feature. If Matt gets my double feature before I do, I'm just gonna go with fucking Grey Gardens, man, because this is pure camp.
I don't think I picked a really deep fucking cut.
Okay, good. I did not. I know that we mentioned this last week at the end of our episode. This was a surprise for me that this was originally based on a Bram Stoker novel. It was his last novel, and I believe Ken Russell was talking about how it's too bad that it was his last novel because there are some like pieces of genius in it, but he just wasn't at his full facility. Yeah, he didn't have all of his facilities left. And so Ken Russell and the other guy that wrote it, I didn't write down the name, took the pieces that they wanted and really took a lot of liberties. I love the fact that since it was a Bram Stoker novel, they brought in the vampirism, but they made it snake vampirism. And I also love the fact that the original story, which I believe it was based around mesmerism, and mesmerism is the precursor to hypnotism, and they utilize that, which I think is super, super chef's kiss clever, to bring that small piece of the original story into their interpretation, their modernized interpretation of the story here. Just really, really great. But then on the other side, they kind of smash us over the head with the that dream sequence on the plane with Hugh Grant where his red tipped pen it goes from 6 to midnight while he's watching a cat fight. I thought that it was gonna be like, I was like, did I just catch that? And I was like, oh yeah, it's pretty obvious now.
Yeah.
Lots of penis in this, and no actual penises, again, but a lot of penis.
That's why I literally thought that this was a Clive Barker adaptation originally.
What are you trying to say about Clive Barker?
After we all talk about our double features in a couple minutes, I'll tell you my backup double feature that made me think that this was a Clive Barker
Is it the Midnight Meat Train? Because
all right, so first and foremost, we got to know what Kyle's drinking over there.
I listen. I didn't get a beer that matched this, but it's a seasonal thing. I get at least one every year, and it's because it's a horror themed beer. So while it doesn't connect to Lair of the White Worm, I am drinking Rosemary's Baby. Oh, you can't. This is bad. There we go. Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
Two Roads puts out a pumpkin beer with a Rosemary's Baby reference, and I never, ever can pass it up, even if it's not really my favorite pumpkin beer. But cheers to snake women and the bites they give. Don't know what the fuck that was.
Wormer, I don't even know her. I also have a drink. It's non-alcoholic. I thought in honor of Eve not having lost her virginity, I was going to have some cherry Coke.
Of course.
And it's virgin. It's a virgin drink, guys.
I love it.
And I finished my water because I'm a virgin.
I can't believe we didn't talk about about Flogging Molly's song at the beginning here.
Oh my God! I literally
the fucking tossers, baby.
Flogging Molly question mark is my first
I
note.
did not expect you to make that same fucking joke, but I'm so happy you did.
I had to hold the paper up to prove it.
I had to look up who that band was. It's a band called the Tossers, which I did know one song from, which was exciting to me.
You're saying it wrong. It's the Tossers.
Oh, the Tossers.
Oh, well, we just lost all of our Irish listeners. Thank you so
sorry,
much.
guys.
I don't think it's Irish. I think it's Orkney, which is like just like the West Virginia of the British Isles.
No.
Let's just say we lost all of Europe, really.
Yeah. And Appalachia now, because you just said fucking, yeah.
Damn it. Man, weird. And last week we made fun of the people that were critical of Paranorman's gay brother, and man, we are just
the readers of the National
Review not having listeners
online.
Afterwards.
Yeah, we're just losing everybody.
Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
Matt, do you want to give us your heavily excavated double feature?
So I don't even really like this movie that much, but there is a movie that is from the 70s that feels like it was shot on the same film stock as Lair of the White Worm, creatively just titled
about, man, that movie sucks. It sucks.
About a guy being turned into a snake. Yeah, I mean... White Worm, Snake.
Did they remake that and that's the one that I saw?
Nope. He probably saw the bad one from the 70s. Scream Factory released a Blu-ray of it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And usually when they release a Blu-ray, it finds its way onto some streaming sites again. Yeah. So they can drum up those sales. That's mine. I'll save the other one for after you two go if neither one of you say it.
Well, I'm going to pop in before Kyle because I know Kyle hasn't seen this one because we're going to do a re-rental of it. Curse 2, The Bite. Another amazing snake vampire movie. What kind of?
Fuck yeah.
Kyle, have you seen
really-
Curse 2? You have not, right?
It's like a snake werewolf movie more than anything.
It actually is a snake werewolf. We got the snake vampires in Lair the White Worm, and then we get snake werewolves in Curse 2, The Bite, which has no bearing upon Curse or Curse 3.
I will still probably watch. If I like it enough, I'll still visit.
Kyle, your double feature?
Oh, Stanley. It's just another snake movie.
Stanley?
It's really
Does
not
it have
even,
a lot of S's at the beginning of it too?
No, and it's really not even a vampiric snake movie. It's just about a guy who has a snake that he sicks on people as revenge. Though my other one was going to be a movie called Fangs, which I believe Brian has shared with us, and it is just stupidity movie about a woman who loves a snake. Which I hope I didn't just. I hope that wasn't the one, Matt, that I just.
I don't know. No. So
Okay.
the movie that I kept thinking about, which made me think that this was a Clive Barker movie, was that I kept thinking about Rawhead Rex while I was watching this.
Oh, dude.
Man, if we could double feature. Well, what I want is if we're getting this remake of Hellraiser that's being spearheaded, raw-headed by Clive Barker, we need a Clive Barker Rawhead Rex where he gets to do the 7-foot
monster?
dick.
Yeah. Wait, have you which Books of Blood is that? Have you read it yet?
It's in
short?
my collection. I
Yeah.
haven't gotten to it. It's near the end. I think
Oh,
it might
man.
have been volume 3 at
Okay.
that point. I mean, because I'm pretty sure I'm into volume 2's general vicinity. But yeah, Rawhead Rex. I've read the comic and
Okay.
watched the movie multiple times.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Rawhead Rex is a great double feature for this, honestly.
That's a really good. The thing is that it also seems like it could be the next town over.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Everybody has a fucking cult.
That's
Yeah.
why I legitimately was like, this has to be Clive. Like, all I could remember was that it was adapted by a famous author's book, and it just, everything about it screamed Clive to me.
Man,
more
I'm
than
stealing
Ron.
yours. Fuck my snake
Go,
movies.
take it.
I'm
Get out of
stealing
Fangs.
your second. I'm stealing your
You
alternate.
can have it. All right.
Lots of penis monsters this weekend.
Love it.
We're talking a lot about dicks, which makes my what did I watch this week?
What is
extra
your
awkward.
what did you watch for this week?
So there's a show on Disney Plus that I've really been championing for a little
Is it
bit,
about
and
dicks?
no, it's the fact that I'm going from all this dick talk to something so wholesome and family friendly, which is the third season of High School Musical. The musical, the series is finished, and it was really good. It's just a
Man,
really
I don't
fun.
even want to watch the show because the title makes my expectations of hilarity so much higher than they could ever possibly
It
be.
is a fun, self-aware show. I mean, it's where Olivia Rodrigo got her start,
Mm-hmm.
was like writing songs for that and starring in it. The first season is about a group of kids who go to the high school where High School Musical was shot. They get a new drama club teacher who's like, how the hell have you never done High School Musical as the school musical when you go to the school where the movie was shot? So they do High School Musical as the musical, and it's all like Office, Parks and Recreation style, so it's like a documentary about them making this. Season 2 is just okay. It's just literally them doing the next show, which they did they did Beauty and the Beast, and then this season 3, because they had this giant like 15 actor cast at this point, they split it up into like 2 separate seasons that we're going to get. So this season is following 6 of the kids from the high school who go to a summer camp together, like a summer musical camp to do Frozen. And then I guess in a couple months we'll get the second part that's like what the other characters were doing during that summer, which is a cool way to like split up the cast and not overwork everybody. I think it's a really important show in all seriousness, because it tackles so much gender identity stuff. It tackles so much race stuff. Like, they really try to do a good job of making a show about Gen Z and about the stuff that Gen Zers really give a shit about. Like, half the cast is bisexual or non-binary, or like covering those topics in a very sincere, supportive way, which works specifically in this show because, like, of course, it's the drama kids. Like,
theater
those
kids,
were
yeah.
always the kids that were so open and ahead of the curve on all of that stuff.
I don't want to speak for. I don't want to put myself on blast, but I was a theater kid.
So, I talk a lot about Vinegar Syndrome on here, and
No.
they have a series pornographic films, like a porn series called Peakorama. I've never.
Is it actual porn, or is it just like NC-17?
No,
softcore?
like old, like X-rated, like 42nd Street, like pornographic films.
Yeah, they'll put out like Debbie Does Dallas or like Let My Puppets Come, or it's usually just not a regular porn. It is like a noteworthy kind of out there grindhousey porn.
Which I don't want to say was it's not a blind spot, as if like I need to fill this blind spot, I need to fill the hole, so to speak. But it was one of those things
Your
where
white
I realized
worm is
right,
just
it's filling the hole.
satisfied.
Yeah, white worm just won't satisfy. I need to fill it with corruption, and that was the movie I watched. I watched a movie called Corruption, and I don't know. All of this to say, the film doesn't matter, because it wasn't like. It was interesting in the fact that they really try to put some sort of story to a pornographic film, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or one or the other, or they like feel like they need to build the story. It was very surreal, and like I don't quite understand. There's a character who looks like Elliot Gould who has to
my God.
Yeah, which was fucking weird, big time weird. Who like is dealing with like 3 mystery doors, and each mystery door has a further level of like corruption or whatever in his
like kink.
Yeah, well, not even kink, but like sex with somebody who we shouldn't be having sex with. There is a kink one, and then there's like no sex but just watch. There's like voyeurist one. It's like it's like levels of. I guess they are kinks, but it's not like I wouldn't say it's a kinky film. It's more of
well, maybe for the time it was.
Right.
When was it made? 70s.
Early 80s maybe.
Okay.
And I was trying to find it beforehand, but I actually get it confused. The whole reason I got it because I thought it was a Peter Cushing film, Corruption, which was a grindhouse horror film, and then
but there is some Peter Cushing in it.
There's a lot of cushion for the pushing. There's not.
You don't
They're all
even
skinny.
know her.
They're all skinny as fuck. Everybody is a twig because it's the early
heroin
80s.
chic, right?
Yeah, big time. But Carly and I watched it, and it wasn't necessarily for any reason more than to be like, we've never sat and watched a pornographic film that was like of that time or even of that like genre. Like it was just a fascinating sort of like dipping our toes into like a whole realm that we had no knowledge of. Not only was it like, it was funny at parts, it was arousing at parts, it was fucking weird at parts. Like it was just. I highly recommend picking up at least one title from that series if vintage erotica or porn or whatever is like something you don't know anything about.
I can tell you categorically, I do not know anything about this.
Bruh, I've never seen a porn in my entire life.
Not that kind. I've seen a lot of stuff from about 1997 to 2017.
Right.
That's the sweet spot for me, guys.
Right. Like, and that's sort of the thing. It was like I've only been exposed to internet porn in which you can find these things, but it's never been something I've like sought out.
But are you really gonna watch an hour and 20 minutes or whatever of vintage porn if you're like cruising for porn on the internet?
No,
you're not.
No, it's in and out. It's like, and that was the other thing is like
got
we're sitting
20
there
minutes
watching
tops.
a story unfold just with 10 to 15 minute segments of porn.
That time is so fucking weird.
It almost felt like Lynchian at times. Like it was.
I can see that.
It was fucking crazy. And so
It was
of course,
fucking, crazy.
Crazy. It was fucking kind of crazy. Yeah, absolutely. And in Vinegar Syndrome, I trust. So like, there's an I don't know if I'm gonna continue in this realm by any means, but it was just really interesting. It was like something out of my comfort zone. Again, not even in a kink way, just like it was just in a cinephile way. I have no idea about this period in history that was so prominent. Like they were cranking
them out.
They're cranking them out, baby. But anyway, I don't need to talk about Corruption anymore. The dude looks like Elliot Gould. Don't fucking watch it. It was just what I watched.
Well, it's very interesting the way that you pretty much set me up for my double feature or what did I watch this week? I got a chance to watch Pearl.
Oh,
and
shit.
so for the uninitiated, Pearl is the prequel to X by Ty West, and it was co-written by Ty West and Mia Goth, who's the main character, Pearl. She also plays the elderly Pearl and Maxine, the young one in X, and they're going to do a sequel to X, so they're doing a trilogy. The sequel to X is called Maxine with 3 X's, and I assume that's coming out before the end of the year, because I think that's their whole thing, is that all 3 of them are coming out in 2022. I had low expectations beyond the Technicolor. It was a fine ride. I have low expectations for Ty West movies because nothing is ever going to touch House of the Devil, and I was burnt real fucking bad by The Innkeepers. I loved it. I thought Pearl was miles better than X. I liked X because X looks like that 70s grindhousey exploitation sex movie with the gels and the cuts, and the presentation is very much in line. And then this movie is so much it's like twisted Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, like, there are so many beats that are so like and scenes that were blocked to look exactly like Wizard of Oz, like famous Wizard of Oz scenes, and evoke that concept. I didn't really feel the horror in it. It was more like a drama for a big chunk of it, and I was expecting that going into it because I knew that it was Pearl's like origin story, right? But it was Mia Goth is so good in it. She's much better in it than she was in X. She really is cementing herself as someone that will put my butt in a seat next time she's in a movie. I didn't even know who she was before X, but I really loved Pearl. And the last 15 minutes is true horror. It's like psychological horror, but it's really well written. It's incredibly paced for it being a fucking monologue. I can't recommend it enough. It looks beautiful. It's definitely not something that I would expect myself on paper to enjoy as much as I did. And I'm not saying it's the best horror movie of the year, but it's really fucking good. And I'm really excited to see Maxine because it's going to be the 80s view. And Ty West, like, you know, I was watching it and I was thinking, like, I feel bad for Ty West because after House of the Devil, I bet he felt like he was kind of shoehorned into this concept of making an era-appropriate film whenever he did something that wasn't a modern film. And I think that he has come back around and realized he's like in his power when he does that, because like he's so good at it. That's really his greatest skill.
Yeah.
It's truly unearthly how good he is at recreating things, either by the pacing, by the cinematography, or by like the physical, like the mechanisms with which he's shooting scenes. It has to be the camera work as well. I don't even know what it is, but it's...
Well, he edited a lot, if not a lot, at least House of the Devil, and then beyond. I'm sure he's edited a lot, so he knows the pacing in each essential category of making that shit, which all the people that we talk about do that. I mean, we talked Tobe Hooper, and I know he didn't edit, but you're talking about types
he created
of people.
That late 70s aesthetic with...
Absolutely. Carpenter is another... Like, all the greats have their hands and knowledge and, like, hands. They have their craft spread out throughout the whole thing. Ty West is one.
But I also think that there's an argument to be put in there too, and this is coming from, ironically, a guy who chose to not go to film school, even though he wanted to make movies at one point in his life. But I took a lot of film classes in college because the good thing that comes from doing film classes or doing film school is that we as people naturally decide very young, honestly, what the genres are of movies that we like, and force ourselves to stick within that category. And film school forces you to watch dramas and these black and white movies and all these different types of things, to the point that like like I've talked about this before, that I don't love the fact that because I took film classes, I watched something like Birth of a Nation or Triumph of the Will or any of those things. But it is also really good that I feel good that I I have that reference point in my head. I have that understanding of especially something like Triumph of the Will, because you watch a movie like that, you can see the methods of manipulation in everything that you're exposed from that point, because it is such a pure example that maybe in 1941 when it was released isn't even nearly as clear as it is after the war when you're watching it and saying, oh my God, they just hid so much in this to make this such a rah-rah patriotic sentiment. And those are movies that under any other circumstance I would never watch.
Right.
But because it was like, hey, you have to watch, like, this is part of learning about cinematography. This is part about learning about the art of filmmaking. And I think that what also comes from that is that you discover these eras of films that maybe you didn't watch. So like, knowing that Ty West was a film school student, I am sure that he was exposed to all of these different types of 70s movies and went, okay, why aren't we making films that look like this?
We followed that
Like,
trail.
why-
Like you could,
Yeah.
because you could stop. You could stop at that point. Like you could
Yeah.
stop at what they had showed you in school and not continue down that path. But it's like you're not the only one that I've heard Scott reference Wizard of Oz, but certainly he's talking about even a larger and broader age of Hollywood that he references, even minutely. You know,
Yeah.
like you're talking about an insane connection in comparison to a time that does not exist anymore.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
it's also that line of, and don't get me wrong, I do really like Stranger Things, but like you have something like Stranger Things where anybody can just make a movie or a show that takes place in the 80s and make it feel 80s with the proper soundtrack or whatever.
Right, yeah.
It takes a totally different person to make something like The Lighthouse that straight up feels like a film from the year that it was released. Like or the year that it takes place in. And I think that is the gift that Ty West has that does put him a step above a lot of the other people's. There are plenty of people who are making movies that are based in the 70s and the 80s. He makes movies that feel like they are from the 70s.
Yeah,
Like-
totally a great point. It does make me very excited for Maxine because what he's going to do with that 80s aesthetic is I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing that upset me quick?
Go ahead.
My local theater decided to shut its doors until December. And listen, I live in a upper to middle class shoreline Connecticut town that has a five screen independent theater, but they also know their audience. So part of me understands why they would do this. They understand that they no longer have a summer crowd and that people like to go see movies during Christmas time. But here's what they said. The cinema has taken a pause in operations. We will reopen in mid-December when we feel more quality content is available. We look forward to welcoming you back to the cinema this winter. And when they say more quality content, it puts the blame on creators and filmmakers and I understand that they've been around for as long as I've been around, if not longer. They've been around for 30 plus years, and the cinema knows its audience again. But I took a picture of the posters that were hanging in there as coming attractions, and we're talking about Smile, which would put butts in seats, though it's maybe not be a good movie, but you have a whole town of kids. The Woman King, which I understand, but it's also Viola Davis, and old folk are going to love going to see strong black characters because they don't know any better.
But it's hyper violent. I don't think
that... My point is that they know their audience, but they also could try something maybe a little fucking different. You know what I mean?
So
It's
I think that's a travesty. I'm not going to disagree with that. I will say, as someone who pays way too much money to have an all-access pass to both Regal and AMC, I have not really been able to even try to get my money's worth out of it. And I don't blame it on the filmmakers. I blame it on the studios that are now like only really releasing like one or two big movies a month.
Yeah.
When it used to be like per week you were getting two or three big movies that were dropping. It's looking like right when we hit kind of late October into November, it's about to amp up. But that was the first time where I looked at a block of movies coming out in like a 2-month period and said, ooh, a lot of those feel like I need to be in a theater for. Especially like the Marvel movies typically feel like if I'm not sitting in the theater watching them because of the length of the movie, I am way more inclined to get up and move around.
For sure. But that's the reason why
movie.
I don't like. That's why I waited, and that's why I haven't said anything about it, because it's old news now. But like, I waited until Thor: Love and Thunder hit D+, because I was not gonna sit through a 2 hour. I really don't think I have any desire to sit through a 2 hour Marvel movie, 2 hour plus Marvel movie ever again.
It also doesn't help that Phase 4 kind of sucks.
Yeah.
You're not
Phase
wrong.
4
The funniest thing about Phase 4 is that the TV shows are more entertaining than the movies so far.
Multiverses, time travel, all of that stuff is really fucking hard to make compelling
It's
over and over
boring.
and over
It's
and
so
over again.
boring. I mean, Kang was like, I understand why they picked Kang as the big bad after Thanos, but like, I don't give a fuck.
we're gonna get to Fantastic Four soon, and that I'm actually legitimately excited for.
Yeah,
So it's
all
like,
the
right,
other
let's
ones
just-
have been really good. So
let's
Yeah.
get.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I'm ready to actually
Can
like
we get
the
Chris
Fantastic
Evans
Four
back
movie.
as Human Torch in the same
It's
in
fine,
the MCU?
Look, I'm sick of The Incredibles being the only good Fantastic Four movie that was ever made. So like, we need to get there.
I'm gonna have to buy a theater. You know that movie we bought a zoo? Kyle buys his theater. Is what I don't know how or. Like,
I feel like
but
that's kind of like one of the 3 branches of the possibilities of your life.
yeah,
you
dude.
know, like
it was either
really-
filmmaker,
it
video
tracks.
store, or theater.
Well, the video store is kind of off the table right now.
I feel like time and time again, if you have the passion for it and know how to get that passion to other people who are passionate,
Yeah.
like, you can do it. And I think Mahoning Drive-In is a brilliant example of like a drive-in movie theater that had almost closed multiple times, and every single time that there was even a hint that like, hey, we might be losing the contract on the land, we might be losing this, that, or the other thing, like the people who loved what they were doing band it together and was like, fucking no, we want the drive-in movie theaters are already dying, like, don't take away this one
The
that
one
is
that's
like the
functioning,
oldest,
yeah.
the one that's doing it right. Like, so we got really off Lair of the White Worm, which is kind of fine, but that was Lair of the White Worm, which from 1989. We'll be back next week with even more horror movie night fun.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.